Originally I was going to leave well enough alone, but at this point things are just getting a little ridiculous as far as the media is concerned. I know it's going to be really hard to believe anything I have to say, being somebody who claimed themselves to be a gamer to begin with, so it would make me biased to the subject. But it's not so much a matter of bias, it's a matter of common sense when it comes to many different factors. And of course, the thing I'm talking about is probably one thing, again, that's been in the media quite a bit as of late, especially because of a news article that was released not even a day or two ago, which involves video game violence and how it affects our youth, or just people in general, and how the correlation between violent acts and violent video games themselves. And I've made a similar whole rant on my personal channel a long time ago. The only reason why it's here is because, well, gaming channel, this is mostly gaming news, to make sense. But anyways, it's just really sad that we're still having this whole debate, and that people are even still thinking about this. I mean, there's many different stories, but some of the main ones that really pop up, CNN, it was on August 26, 2013, there was an 8-year-old kid who, presumably after playing Grand Theft Auto 4, decided to shoot their caregiver. And of course, immediately, police officers are like, oh, it must be Grand Theft Auto's fault. He played a violent video game, that's the reason why he went and did it. Grand Theft Auto did not put the gun in the kid's hand. Grand Theft Auto was not the one that forced the kid to pull the trigger and unfortunately kill his elderly caregiver. Or in some articles it's his grandmother. That's still something they keep kind of go back and forth. It shows you just how well informed the media is. And it's just this kind of sensationalism that just, okay, whatever, if you put happy stories, apparently we're so fucked up as a society that nobody cares. Everybody wants to see bad news for some reason. That's what seems to sell or get people's attention. But this is just pathetic. I mean, and what's even worse is the fact that nobody ever wants to take responsibility for their own actions. Or we, as a society don't want to take responsibility for our own actions. It's not even so much the video games, because there's other forms of media that have plenty of violence and nobody ever bothers to link it to that. Such as movies. You have like Django Unchained, just any actually Quentin Tarantino film, which usually has great writing but has a lot of very excessive and graphic violence in it and so forth. Or even just like Breaking Bad, you have Game of Thrones especially, just so much violence and nobody ever seems to say anything about it. You have books. I mean, books are definitely a great thing to read. Everybody should be reading books. I mean, it's a great way of finding that same kind of adventure and imagination the video games has to offer, but nobody ever bothers to blame books, and books have been around forever. Violence, as a matter of fact, has been around forever, so how can you blame video games when we've had mass murderings, and other atrocities when video games didn't even exist? It just doesn't make any sense to me, and it's just kind of, again, it's amazing to see people still trying to put two and two together, trying to say that it's violence that's causing, and video games that's causing people to be so violent. And why don't we ever question the parents? That's the one thing that really bothers me more than anything. And I won't go ahead and be the jackass who says it's poor parenting, even though I do feel that it is poor parenting. Let's just go ahead and say it's just poor parental supervision, which is just borderline bad parenting. Let's say they're not there at the time, so it's kind of hard, because again, you had the elderly caregiver. It's going to be kind of hard for somebody so elderly to be able to keep a close eye on a child. And now it sounds like I'm just making excuses for them, but I mean, you got to be able to keep an eye on, what your kids are doing. I mean, for one thing, you have the ESRB for a reason. You have the rating system, E for everyone, because it's a game that's going to be playable for everybody. You have T for teens. So it's generally anybody who's under the age of 18, it'd be okay for them to play. Then you have, rated M for mature, because it's meant for a mature audience. It's supposed to be people that are, over the age of 18, people that can kind of handle whatever kind of subject matter is there. And the ESRB on the front and the back tell you not only the rating, but at least on the back, it even gives you a pretty precise description of what to expect as far as if there's violence, drug use, strong language, and so forth. And again, it's something that you find in any media. Even with movies, you have the rating system as far as, rated G, PG, PG-13, and rated R, and nobody's ever made a big deal about that. And And it just further goes into that. I mean, pay attention to what your kids are playing. You don't have to know the ins and outs of the story, but at least pay attention to what's going on as far as, again, like I said, the rating, or even if you walk in, you see somebody, you know, you see a kid, your kid, playing a game where they're shooting somebody in the face. That's probably not the game they should be playing. I'm just, you know, putting that out there. I mean, pay attention. And not only that, why aren't we questioning? You know what, I'm not going to go ahead and do the whole, oh, blame the guns thing, because a lot of people get pissed off when you try and blame their guns, because they're going to be like, it's not the gun that shot itself, it's not the gun that put itself in the kid's hand, same as like I said with the video game. Alright, then why was the gun so accessible to the child? That's the issue. Why didn't the parent put it in a more concealed location? Or like my friend Nate, who happens to own, you know, a shotgun. He has his shotgun, and then he has his ammo in a completely different location. And not a lot of kids are going to know how to properly load ammunition into a firearm in order to be able to use it. So the fact that this kid was able to just grab the gun, point it, and shoot it is obviously an issue. It shouldn't have been that simple for him. And that's something you cannot argue. But besides that, I mean, because that was back in August 26, 2013, there's been other noticeable, you know, acts of violence that, you know, the main reason why it happened was apparently from video games. More recently, as I mentioned, you have, unfortunately, the boy who brought a weapon to school and was sentenced to home confinement. Now, this one's actually really funny, and I mean, this is kind of one of those moments where you're like, oh, now I've seen it all. And of course, it's Florida. Just has to be the one state that I happen to live in that I always try to knock for a reason, which is kind of always the butt of the joke of the United States of America. Is always going to be Florida, because Florida's just filled with stupid people. And I'm sorry if that offends you, but whenever you see anything that's like a major screw up as far as even politics or just people doing really crazy stuff, we have crazy people all over America, but the one that's most publicized tends to be Florida for whatever reason. I guess it's because of awesome things like this. Well, the officer caught the child, and they searched and found that he actually had an unloaded handgun, but he had a magazine with 6 bullets that were in there, a steak knife, and a small-handed sledgehammer. And it's funny because the boy's father is like, oh, he's just acting out this game that he loves to play called Minecraft. Because last time I played Minecraft, let's not even talk the PC with the mods, because what they show is actually the Xbox Live arcade version of Minecraft, vanilla of Minecraft period, whether it be on PC or on console. There's no sledgehammers, there's no hammers, there's no, you know, steak knives. You have swords, and you definitely don't have guns, because there's no reason for guns. The whole point of Minecraft is exactly as it sounds, to mine, and to go ahead and once you mine those resources, to be able to craft, because the whole point of Minecraft is to be able to create things, to be very creative. And you should really go ahead and, if you're unfamiliar with it, look up online what people were able to come up with. It's, so some people consider it a waste of time, but just the amount of imagination, creativity these people have is just mind-blowing. But aside from that, yes, you go ahead, you can create swords and you can create bows and arrows to defend yourself, but even then, most of the time, it's not even worth fighting the zombies or the spiders or the skeletons, or especially not the creepers, because more times than not, even if you have a decent amount of armor, it's usually going to result in your death. The whole point, again, is to kind of just create things. That is the main idea for Minecraft, is to mine resources and craft something, you know, amazing. And it's just great because the father is so misinformed. For starters, he calls Minecraft a zombie killing game, because Minecraft and, you know, zombie killing is just so synonymous with one another, just whenever you hear that name for some reason. I mean, not only that, but he said that as far as the reason why he had the hammer, and this is just great, because I don't even, I'm sorry if I seem really insulting, and I am, you know, pretty upset about it. I'm not going around shooting anybody because I'm angry. But he goes to say that he has the sledgehammer because in order to be able to dig into the dirt, you use a hammer. How do you dig into the dirt with the hammer? That doesn't even make any kind of logical sense. It just shows how detached he is from the situation, just how misinformed that he is. And unfortunately, how misinformed a lot of people tend to be. And again, it's kind of what leads to a lot of these horrible situations. Because again, where was the gun that was so easily accessible for this kid to get a hold of it? And okay, granted, at least in this situation, the clip, you know, was not in the gun, but he still was able to find, the kid was able to find the gun as well as the clip, and he had it on him. It obviously wasn't concealed or, stashed away well enough. This kid was able to get a hold of it and be able to bring it to school. And I mean, this is really just what comes up in the news far too often. Because like I said, the whole sensationalism, we're looking for a scapegoat. And unfortunately, that's the way humanity always likes to handle things. It's like we can't face our own flaws. We can't go ahead and look at the darker sides of ourselves as far as our own screw-ups or things that we do wrong, or just accept the fact that some people are just mentally unstable and they'll just do bad things because they're not getting the help that they need. Instead, we're going to go ahead and look for the easiest thing our minds can come up with. Well, they're playing video games, therefore they must be a killer because they're playing violent video games. If kind of to take the whole cue from a few other articles, if I'm playing Cooking Mama, it's not going to make me an expert chef. If I'm playing Madden 2014, it's not going to make my fat ass a pro football player. It's just not the way things work. They're not simulations that can teach us exactly how to be able to do things. And it's really sad that people have this, flawed notion that that's how video games work. And I mean, even there's an article, again, kind of a little bit far back. I mean, it was posted September 21st of this year, to where in Slate.com you have Sean Vidka, who says the video game lovers need a new tactic in the debate about violence. And he's basically saying that there's plenty of proof. There's been many different things that have been put out there as far as different studies that show a link. And the only reason why a lot of these people don't want to hear it is because the video game players themselves, and because of that natural bias, and they're not going to go ahead and listen to what has to be said. And it's really just, for lack of better terms, bullshit. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use myself as an example. I'm 26 years old. I'm married. I have a child on the way. I have a 40-hour, a week full-time job that I work fixing computers for people. I've done community service. I'm a 4.0 student in college. I'm a member of Phi Theta Kappa, which is you can only get in there with 3.5 GPA or higher. And I'm sorry if I sound like I'm bragging about myself here, because I'm really not. My point is, I play lots of video games, and quite a few of those video games happen to be violent, but I've never had violent thoughts. I've never wanted to inflict any harm on anybody around me. That's just not the way things work. It's more of a case-by-case basis. And it's exactly the point. Okay, yes, I said that I may be a decent individual, and I may not try and commit violence, and the argument will be like, well, just because you're that way, it doesn't mean, nobody else is. And you're right, it doesn't mean that nobody else is, but I can go ahead and guarantee you, and I defy anybody to prove me otherwise, that there are more people who play violent video games that are not violent than there are people who play violent video games that are violent. You're not going to see, a greater number of people who play violent video games that go around creating these events that you see on the news than people who play violent video games and don't cause violence. Because again, that's not how people work. People are not that crazy by nature. They're going to let a video game influence them to such an extent. Usually these people that cause these kind of issues or go around killing people, these mass shootings, or even just these smaller, more isolated cases, are either too young to understand because parents weren't paying attention to what they're playing, or because of the fact that, again, you had poor parental supervision on top of the fact that the weapons that they're using are so easily accessible that's going to lead to these kind of issues. And as far as the mass shootings are concerned, it's really because those people are very unstable. I can't think of any time there's been a mass shooting where the person was mentally all there. And these are the kind of, issues we need to address instead of trying to brush everything off onto video games. It's just very irresponsible. And it's just very foolish, and it's just a complete lack of common sense. And again, I'm sorry if I come off as being insulting. I am very passionate about the matter. And it is what it is. And I'm sorry if it seems off kind of biased. But again, if you think about it, it makes sense. It really does. Because again, if you go ahead and look at all these different factors, if this person found the mental help that they needed, or if they had people supporting them, chances are this wouldn't happen. If the guns were not easily accessible, or if the parents were paying attention to their children, there's a very good chance they wouldn't have access to those weapons. They wouldn't be bringing them to school. They wouldn't be doing such, horrendous things. It really is as simple as that. So please, for the love of God, stop blaming video games. Take a look at the real issues and work on it from there. And again, as far as the media is concerned, I mean, obviously, the media is not going to be watching my video. But the media really needs to stop with their sensationalist, articles as well, because it's really not helping the matter. Because to the parents who are misinformed, they're looking to these articles and seeing them as absolute, undeniable fact. And that's only going to cause more harm than it will ever to help any kind of situation, especially when the articles written by some of these people are very misinformed in themselves. And that's really about all I have to say on the subject. I'm sorry if I've rambled on quite a bit, but again, it's kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. Usually I just kind of butt out of it. I know that, those are the issues and what needs to be addressed, and I usually won't try and go to the top of the highest mountain and yell about it, but it's just really bad, and it's something that really needs to be addressed. Otherwise, we're going to still see the same issues. People are going to have these same poor state of mind and just be completely misinformed, and again, further look for scapegoats, and it just really needs to stop. We all need to take responsibility for our own actions, and that's really about it. So I thank you for listening. If you have anything you'd like to add to the subject, definitely leave a comment below. And until next time.